So let's review the official diagnostic criteria of fibromyalgia. So people need to have this widespread pain of at least 3 months. And you can see it needs to be all over the body, right and left sides, above and below, particularly in the axial skeleton, and then pain on palpation in 11 specific anatomic locations. And so these are the locations, and so you can look at the list here of where they are on the axial skeleton, and also looking at the limbs, and then on your trapezius, your sternocleidomastoid, low cervical, and then they also get into the gluteal, the greater trochanter, the knee on the medial side. So there are different locations, and I think looking at this chart is good, but it is much easier to see that on the next slide where they actually have a diagram of that. So these are the pain locations where the physician will see where there is the point tenderness. So I think that's a little easier to see on the visual end of that, of where these specific locations are. So they do need to have pain in those particular locations. So people with fibromyalgia sometimes assume they should not exercise. Well, the exact opposite is true. They really do need to exercise. And I think even one of those commercials for fibromyalgia meds, they say, oh, my doctor really wants me to exercise, or exercise will help. Looking at max testing, they're probably going to have reduced VO2 max. Their fatigue and their pain may limit them. They may not be able to actually do a max test, but because if someone's been very, very inactive, they may need to be referred for a GXT stress test to rule out underlying heart disease, and definitely use your perceived exertion. You could also do cycle testing. Low increments, you could do something like the YMCA cycle protocol that we learned in XPhys 2. The 6-minute walk test would definitely work for these clients. They may not have the ability to do something like a standard 1-mile walk test. Strength testing, you have to be careful with strength. You could use something like the hand grip dynamometer versus doing a 1RM. One issue that's very big with fibromyalgia is they're probably going to have increased sensitivity to DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. So you definitely don't want to bring out muscle soreness in them, because that's going to further demotivate them to participate in exercise. Here's an older study from '88, and they assigned participants, and you can see small study as usual, but it was 20 weeks, and they got these participants to commit for nearly a half a year. So some people were assigned to a cycling program, stationary cycling, or to a flexibility program, stretching program, and really you can see there really was no difference in that about half the participants reported improvements based on the fibromyalgia impact questionnaire. So it doesn't really matter what they do as long as they're consistent and they do it, and that should improve their fibromyalgia symptoms. Water, exercise, walking, all these things are really good. Moderate intensity, progression. So when you're looking at your FITT, VPP, that very last one, that progression, you want to do 50% of what you would do with a normal person. So typically 10% per week we've recommended. Now you do not really want to do that. You want to go maybe 5%. So really, really slow progression with participants who have fibromyalgia. And as we mentioned, strength training is something they can do. Don't do ultimate high intensity. Don't do super high intensity. Maybe go in the 10 to 15 repetitions versus going down to 8 or to 6, because you don't want to bring out this extra sensitivity to delayed onset muscle soreness. You want people to preserve the levels of strength they have, slower progressions. And since people tend to feel worse in the mornings and more stiff, they probably want to do their resistance exercise later in the day.